So continuing with data distribution. So a data distribution is just a graph of the data. And when we talk about the distribution, we're really like, what is the shape of that graph? So we just did the mammal one here. And so the shape of this graph right here is I see a relatively symmetric bell shape, but it has this right tail. So again, describing this one right here, and we saw that in various versions of this data distribution. Like if I go back to my Google Sheet here, I have this which is slightly different, but similar to that one. So I'm just gonna copy, so I can write on you. And paste didn't work here, so I have to do it a little different. So in describing this data distribution, I may say something like this distribution is relatively symmetric. It's got kind of a bell shape to it. But it does have this right tail over here. Whenever I see in a distribution that it has a tail, that tail is called a skew. This value right here is pulled away from the rest of the data. So for this particular data set, I would say, yeah, it looks skewed right to me. Skew is always the tail. They are synonymous. And every data set has a slightly different shape. Sometimes you see these bell shapes, sometimes you see these tails, but there's all other kinds of things that can happen. So I'm going to share a data set from the book so we can look at some other examples. I'm going to look at the, let's see, do I have it right here, AllCountries data set, which is referenced several times. That data set's available in the useful websites page, but I'm also going to share my version of it here with you in the chat. And for you YouTubers out there in the future, I will put it in the description. So if you check out the chat right now, you'll find a link to this. If you want to edit this, you would then need to make your own copy. I don't think you need to edit this one. I'm just going to make a few quick charts to talk about the distribution. So let's take a look at birth rate first. So I just took the birth rate column out of this chart. There's a whole bunch of different ones. Remember, when we look at these summary tables or these tables of data, it's sometimes hard to know what each column means. What does internet mean? What does cell mean? And these descriptions are usually in the back of the book. So birth rate is just the percent of births that happen each year in this country. So birth rate here, and I chose to bring the country name in with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just sort this, just for fun, to remind you how to sort in a spreadsheet. So copy all of the data. Notice there's some missing numbers. We don't have birth rates for some countries. And when you sort, here's my recommendation, because we have these titles at the top. Don't just choose sort at the top, choose sort range. Tell the computer it has a header row, so then you can choose which one you want to sort by. That way the header stays at the top. So when I sort this, if I did it right, those titles still appear at the top. That's useful for bigger data sets. Like this one right here has a ton of different columns. So if I want to do a sort here, I would highlight everything. Quick way to do that is Control-Shift down arrow to get to the bottom, Control-Shift right arrow to get all the way to the right. And if I wanted to do a sort here, there are so many different columns I could choose to sort on. I would have to choose sort range and then say, hey, I have headers, and then I can choose anything to sort by. And I can change my mind and do it a different way later. Like here, I could choose to sort by birth rate or death rate or life expectancy. Let's look at life expectancy. That's what we were looking at for mammals earlier. Sort A to Z, ascending, smallest to largest. Notice it left all of those at the top, but now the countries are in order, not by name, but by the life expectancy. And I did smallest to largest. So that means Sierra Leone is a dangerous country to live in. They have a very short life expectancy. And if we scroll down at the bottom, the country with the highest life expectancy is Tuvalu. I have no idea what that country is, but they have the highest life expectancy. Oh, actually, they could be a blank. Some life expectancies were blank. Usually blanks get put on the bottom. Sort life expectancy. Okay, so that country didn't have one. So let's see, whatever's in my row 200 has the highest life expectancy. Hong Kong, okay, and then Japan. So places for people to live long. All right, so back to birth rate here. Is it necessary to sort these? The answer is no, but sometimes it's nice to have them sorted. So I have the smallest at the top, largest at the bottom. Maybe we want to go the other way. So if I wanted to go the other way, I would highlight everything and then just sort again. Sort range, has a header row, sort by birth rate, but go the other way, put the largest birth rate at the top. Keeps the blanks at the bottom out of my way. And then now at the top, I have the largest one. And these are birth rates, not life expectancies. So what I want to do really here is make a histogram. So highlight this data and use the quick histogram as opposed to the frequency table, which takes a lot longer. Come on, Google. Just thinking about it. There we go. So Google throws one in there. Since I started highlighting at the top and ended at the bottom, it put the chart at the bottom. If I went the other way, I would have put the chart at the top. That's okay. It gives me these interesting columns, right? Up to 8.21, 11.43, 14.64, and so on. Often I want to choose nicer numbers. So those seem to be what, about a little over 3 apart. So I could go to histogram here, and then instead of auto, it doesn't give 3 as an option here, but I can just type it if I want. Hit enter. And now it goes by 3, 5, 8, 11, maybe 2. That's way too many. All right, so you got to kind of play around. 4, oh, that's not too bad. Let's see the whole thing here. Not too many, not too few. 5. I think I like that one right there. It started at 5. Which is fine, but sometimes people like to have 0 in there, which isn't too far away. So if we wanted to change where it starts, we'd have to go to the horizontal axis, set the minimum. So there's no one 0 to 5, that's good to see. Let's clean this up just a little bit and then talk about it. So it says histogram of birth rate. That's kind of a lame title. Birth rates. Countries. That's good. That bottom is the birth rate, so I could leave that there. Maybe I could give it a little more descriptive. What do you mean birth rate? Do % there. And then this column just counts how many countries fit in each category. So vertical axis, I would say that column would be number of countries. All right, so now I just want to talk about this graph a little bit. So let me get a screenshot of it, and we'll compare to death rate and life expectancy. Okay, so what do we see here in rates? This has a definite skew to the right. So in describing this distribution, Distribution just means a graph of the data, generally a histogram. This appears to be skewed right. So the birth rates have a right skew. Why a right skew? Because that's where the tail is, right? What else can I say about this? Majority of birth rates or countries, counting, have birth rates between 10 and 25. Those are the tallest stacks here. Even 5 is pretty tall. So let's go 5 to 25. So majority of countries have birth rates between 5% and 20%. So anytime we make a histogram, we want to just tell a little bit about what we see here. And usually we talk about skewness, we talk about outliers, which I'll get to in a minute, and then maybe where the bulk of the data lies. So that's a description there. Let's try another one. Death rate. So to get a histogram, I highlight all the death rates. Go up to the top, see if it puts the chart up there, and then insert your chart. Google might guess at a histogram, which it did, cool. And then it looked at the data and decided to make this many groups, buckets, bins, classes, whatever you want to call them. And so I'm just going to choose slightly nicer numbers there. Let's see, how wide is this one? 2.5-ish to 3.5-ish. So it looks like these are about 1 apart in terms of the spacing for the death rate. So let's go to customize histogram, and then instead of auto, let's try 1. That's not bad. It looks like the other one. It started at 1.5, which I think is a little awkward. It's not necessary here. So if I want to start in a different spot, I go down to horizontal axis and say, hey, let's do a minimum of 0 or 1. I'm going to go with 0 like I did on the other chart. Yeah, so then my groupings are 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on. And this one looks like a lot more symmetric, right? I'm having a hard time determining a tail on this. Which side is the tail, left or right? Sometimes there isn't an obvious tail. I don't see one here. If you want to explore that more, then just pick a different bucket size. So what if we look at a bucket size of 2 instead? Maybe there's a little more of a right tail than a left. 1.5. Still not sure. I'm going to go back to my, let's see, 2. How did that look? Oh, that's actually kind of nice too. I'm going to go with that one for my histogram. Okay. Is there a best histogram? The answer is no. There are just many histograms. We just need to pick one. This needs better titles. Death rates. Countries. And death rate, I should make it clear, that's a percent, 2%, 4%, 6%, and then I need a column, a vertical axis title, which would be number of countries. Okay, and then let's write about what we see here. So a screenshot of this. Okay, so what do we see in this distribution? I see a relatively symmetric bell-shaped distribution. And I'm still torn about the tail. Which side do I call the tail? I don't know. So I don't really see a skew. And I could be a little further. I could say, well, you know, and the bulk of the death rates here, I guess I would put them between 4 and 10. Running out of room there. Just barely got it. Yeah, so that's what I see there. You know, we could say the largest group of countries is between 6 and 8% for sure. Now, when the computer counts these up, just to be clear, so this column right here is counting any country that has a death rate of exactly 6, so it could be equal to 6. I'm going to use X for the variable there, up to 8, but not 8. The 8 gets counted in the next column. Okay, so another way I could describe this column right here, if I wanted a better descriptor there, that would be 6 to 7.9. And then this next one here, let's do a different color, would be from 8 to 9.9, right before 10. If your data used more decimal places, let's see, what did the data here use? I think they were only to 0.1%. Yeah, so they only went to 0.1%. So that would be a good way to describe it. Oops, wrong button. There we go. So the quick histogram maker in Excel or in StatKey is great. However, these boundaries, like, it's not quite clear where 8 lives. Does 8 live to the left or does 8 live to the right? And it turns out in both StatKey and Google Sheets and Excel, the lower number is always in the current column. The upper number is in the next column. This is the way it goes there. All right, let's do one more and then a new topic. Try life expectancy. What does that look like? So highlight the whole column. There's a bunch of blanks here. So I'm searching for the bottom of the list. Where are you? I should have sorted them. Scroll back to the top to put in the chart. All right, so here is a histogram of life expectancy. Now here I definitely see a tail to the left, right? So this data is clearly skewed left. I'm going to make just some nicer numbers here. 50 to 52.5 to 55. Yeah, that's not too bad. Is that too many columns? No, that's okay. So that's a fine one just the way it is. I'm just going to go with that one. Just fix this. Life expectancy. Life expectancy, and I probably want to be a little bit more clear. That would be in years. Sometimes it's nice if you have a verbal description to say what it's measured in. It's not obvious. And this again would be the number of countries. And we could make lots of other different histograms here. I'm choosing to go with this one because those aren't too bad, but if the decimals are freaking you out, then you could always go to histogram. And instead of have it automatically going 2.5, you could say, let's jump by 2. I get a few more columns. That's freaking me out. So maybe 3, 50, 53, 56. Kind of weird numbers, but not too bad. Could be 5. That's not bad either. I'm just going to go back to auto. I thought that one was okay. I definitely don't want to go all the way down to 0 here. So I did that a couple of times just because 0 is close to the end here. But if I did that here, this would look really weird because there's a long distance from 50 to 0 compared to 50 to 85. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to go for it here. And let's describe what we see. All right, so what do we see here? This definitely has a left skew. I see no symmetry. I don't really see a bell shape here either, kind of little maybe. So when I'm thinking about a distribution, I'm kind of squinting at it, imagining that there's like a curve passing through here. I don't know about that right there. So I'm just going to say this one seems just skewed left. Distribution of life expectancies is skewed left because that's where the tail is. If we did want to talk about like where does the majority of life expectancies lie, I think I would put it in between like 70 and 85. Those are like most of the tallest stacks. They're all of the tallest stacks, so we can say that too. With a majority of countries from 70 to 85 years. All right, so there's all different kinds of things that can happen when we make a graph as far as the shape.